Welcome to the channel. This video is about one of my favorite games, Borderlands 2, and ironically enough, I started off Borderlands 2 on the PlayStation Vita. It's where I completed the game the first time using the PlayStation Vita version of Borderlands 2, which included some of the DLC. It says 6 add-ons here. It doesn't have all the DLC that the PC version and some of the other versions do. It does have the Torg DLC, and it has the Captain Scarlet one, but it doesn't have the Tiny Tina DLC, for example. So it's missing a few things. But this is what got me actually hooked into playing these looter shooter games like Borderlands 2. So even on the Vita, the only problem with the Vita is the Vita version, I don't know if you can tell from the video here, but the frame rate is not great. It's kind of stuttery, and it is playable. It's just that it isn't necessarily the ideal experience for Borderlands 2. So, of course, now you can get Borderlands 2 on PC and you can play it at a really nice high frame rate. But other than the PlayStation Vita and the Nintendo Switch, there really isn't a portable version of this. And the Vita version, the problem is just the Vita itself is a little outdated. And of course the Switch is not super portable in the first place. It's kind of big. So it would be nice to be able to play some kind of portable Borderlands on, say, an Android phone or an Android gaming handheld like the one we have here. I've got the Razer Edge, or some other device. So how do we get this onto here? Well, what we've got here is I've got the Vita emulator, Vita 3K installed. This is just a bare bones Vita 3K install. And what we would like to do is try to get Borderlands onto here. Now, there is a problem. The Borderlands game itself works, but the problem is these 6 add-ons. If you just install the game, then the add-ons don't work. So in other words, you don't get the additional characters, you don't get the Torg or Scarlet DLC that was included with the game. So you're just missing some stuff. So how do we actually get the whole game on here? Which would be kind of nice, is to actually have the whole game. So turns out for a long time it just apparently was not possible. You could play the game but not the DLC, and apparently there is a way. And I was looking around recently just to see if any progress had been made on fixing Borderlands 2, and it turns out that if you just install it, it will still only play the base game without the DLC, but there is a workaround that allows you to actually have the DLC working. And I'll give some thanks here, and I will provide a link in the description, a video on YouTube by Linux Mint Guy, or I shouldn't say Linux, it's Linux Mint Guy. And I looked at that and I was like, oh, well, this would probably work on Vita 3K on the Razer Edge too. So let's see if we can get the DLC working. So what this video is about is just getting the game set up to be able to play with a controller and getting the DLC working on an Android device. I'm going to be using the Razer Edge here for my example, but essentially you can do this on pretty much any Android-based handheld, as long as it's got enough horsepower to run the stuff. So let's get to it. So right now we are looking at a completely bare bones installation of the Vita 3K emulator, and I'll have a link in the description for where to get Vita 3K, although it's pretty obvious. It's just the Vita 3K website. And what we want to do is we want to get Borderlands installed on here and actually set it up so that you can play with proper controls, as long as you have either a controller for your phone or you just happen to have an Android handheld with built-in controls. Because if you don't do a little bit of extra configuration, then you won't be able to do things like sprint and use the melee weapons. So you definitely want to finish the setup. So let's actually get the stuff installed. The rips that I made were no NPDRM rips, so if you're ripping your games, that's probably the best way to do it. I mean, there's probably other ways as well, but this is what I had because this is how I back up my own Vita games. And so the files will be in zips. So we basically just need to install the base game. And sometimes this will take a little while. You can see that the install bar doesn't necessarily progress evenly all the time. Sometimes it will seem to hang up a bit, but if you've got a good rip, then it will continue on. And I don't know why they have so many decimal places in the percentage, but I guess we're very precisely monitoring every byte that gets installed here. Okay, so we've got the main game installed here. Now, to be able to use the DLC and proper controls, you need to install an update. To use the DLC, you at minimum need to install the very first update that got released along with the game, because the initial version on the cartridge doesn't actually support the DLC for some reason. So we need to install an update here. I actually have to hit the right button. So if you've got your update files, 1.01 is the minimum needed to use the DLC at all, but updates higher than that enable the PlayStation TV, which I believe 1.05 is the earliest update that did the PSTV support. You need that because that's the way you get proper controls. So I'm going to install the latest update I have, which is 1.09, let it do its thing, and now we're ready to install the DLC and configure. They're actually, if you separate them out into individual files when you rip your stuff, there are actually 6 DLCs. So we'll just install them in order. Most of them take hardly no time to install if you're installing them individually. The Captain Scarlet and Torg DLCs are the ones that actually have real content in them and that take a little while to install. Well, that's one. Collector's Edition pack takes no time to install because some of these are just essentially flags for content that's already in the game. You notice the menus in Vita 3K are kind of glitchy. Notice the top bit has disappeared, but the menus are still there. It's just not showing them. Oh, wrong one. Don't want to do that at all. Had to back out of that for a second because I tapped install PKG instead of install zip. So the Torg DLC is another one that takes a little while to install because it is actual content. All right, let's get the other ones in. Now, if you want to check, you can go tap on Borderlands and click here, and you'll see what packs you have installed. So you should have the main game, and then 6 DLC files. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So looks like I've got everything done here. Now we're not ready to play. We need to do a little configuration. First off, to get the controls to work, you need to go to Configuration and then Settings. And where this is located is underneath System. So under System, you need to check PSTV mode. And then hit Save. That will make your controller or built-in controls for your handheld work. One other thing you might want to do, just to monitor performance, and this is completely optional, is go under Emulator, tap on Performance Overlay. That'll just give you frames per second so you can see how the game's performing. If you're playing around with tweaking it, you can turn that off later. But I'm going to set it on there just so we can see how well the game's performing. Now, if you are using a non-Snapdragon GPU in your phone or handheld, then you can basically just skip to the next part of the video, because this next little bit is just for configuring a Snapdragon. So we're going to add a driver for Snapdragons, which is what the Razer Edge has. So to get good performance on a Snapdragon GPU for Borderlands 2 and Vita 3K, you generally need to install what we call the Turnip drivers, which are some developer provided, not official developer, but I guess unofficial drivers for Snapdragon chips. I will put a link in the description to where you can get these drivers. But we're going to put one in so that the Razer Edge will have decent performance on this game. So we're going to go to Configuration again, Settings, and we're going to go to GPU. And what we want to do is click on Add a Custom Driver. And I went through a whole bunch of different drivers. There's like tons of them on the Turnip driver site. And the one I found that worked the best for the Razer Edge, which is basically, it's actually technically a Snapdragon G3X Generation 1, but essentially it's equivalent to about a Snapdragon 888 Plus. The one I found that worked the best for the Edge was 23.3.0-VK, and you can see the other numbers there, 1.3.261-A6XX. That's the one I wanted. The other ones I tried that didn't work as well, so you can see that I went through a bunch of them, are here. But we're going to install this one right here. Now, if you have a similar Snapdragon to the 888 Plus, then maybe this one will work the best for you as well. Sometimes you just got to experiment with these, see which ones work better, see which ones don't. So I'm going to install that, and then we have to click where it says Default, and select the driver we just installed. And we're going to hit save and then close. So now we've got the configuration done. Okay, so I've closed out Vita 3K, and now we're going to do the part that enables the DLC. So if you installed the Vita data directories in the default location, then you're going to have to do it kind of like I do here with the PC. If you installed, say, your Vita data directories to the micro SD card, then you may be able to just use the Files app on the device itself to do what we're going to do. But essentially we need to do a little bit of file copying or file moving, and to do that we need access to the Android data directories, which you may need to plug into a PC to do if you're using the default directories. So what I've done is I've plugged my device into my PC, and I have pulled up my directories here. So I'm going to go into internal shared storage and Android and data. I'm going to go down to where it says org.vita3k.emulator. Files, this is a long path, and Vita, and the normal directory for your storage on a Vita is ux0. And where we're going to go here is we're going to go to app PCSE 00383 is actually Borderlands 2. Easy to find here since I only have Borderlands 2 installed. I'm going to go in that directory, and you'll see a directory called DLC here. And if you click in that directory, you will see a bunch of flowers. The problem is, this is some of the stuff that the DLC needs, and Vita 3K is not looking in here for the actual files. So we're going to pull up the other window. We're going to move it where Vita 3K is actually going to look. So we're going to go to internal shared storage again, Android, data, almost the same place we went before. We're going to go all the way down to Vita 3K emulator, files, Vita, ux0, and we're going to go into add cont, which is additional content. And you'll see, again, a directory called PCSE 00383, which again is Borderlands 2. That's Borderlands 2's number. So we're going to go in there, and you'll see some directories that have somewhat similar names here to the flowers over here. And what we're going to do is we're going to take these files from the DLC directory, and we're going to drag them into this add content directory right here. It doesn't take long to move them because it's all in the same place. We're just moving the location. So once we've done that, then we are now ready to actually play some Borderlands 2, and we'll see if the DLC works. So we're going to get out of file transfer mode, and we're going to start the emulator back up. And at this point, we should be able to actually play. So we're back in Vita 3K, and I've hooked my controller up, and unfortunately with my Razer Edge, I can't have video output and the controller hooked up at the same time, but I wanted to show you how the controller worked. So you can see the video on the screen. You probably won't hear the game sound though, because it's not that loud, and I don't have a audio cable hooked up to this thing at the moment. So let's actually see if we can start the game. It'll probably tell me about wanting to update, or maybe not. Maybe it's already done it. So with any luck, we won't get any kind of errors when we actually start the game. You might see this pipelines compiling stuff down here. So when you first play the game, because it's got to compile shaders. You will see some stuttering, probably your first time or two playing the game, but you might notice the frames per second up there is close to 60 here, which is way faster than the original Vita. So we're going to hit start. We're going to see if this DLC stuff worked. No errors so far. So what we're going to do is we're going to start up a new game, and if everything worked, we should see the two DLC characters available to select. And I don't think you can skip this, so I'm going to pause the recording until this is over, because you don't need to watch the whole opening video without any sound. Alright, so long introduction over, and you can see that here are the 4 regular characters here. So these are the 4 normal characters. It's taking a little while to load here because, again, this is the first time we're running the game and we have the shader thing going on. As you can see, the 2 DLC characters, the Necromancer and the Psycho. So let's take a look. We'll start the game with the Necromancer. And again, this is the sort of thing you'll see basically the first time you run it. So we can see, yeah, that's the Necromancer's character model. So skipping a little forward into the introductory part of the game, you'll notice that one of the DLCs is shown up here, the grenade that you get as part of the DLC package here. This little firecracker grenade. Can't use it yet because you don't actually get the actual grenades until level 5, but you know it's there. You can run around. Now, the nice thing about activating the PSTV controls, like we showed in the earlier part of the video, is you can actually use L3 and R3. R3 is melee and L3 is sprint. If you don't set it up this way, then it's really hard to actually use the controls, because on the original Vita, they were mapped to the back touchpad, which is kind of a pain in the butt to use on Vita 3K. So it's really nice to enable those PSTV controls. As you can see, we're running around pretty smoothly here. Guess I should go where I'm supposed to go. And there's one other thing to do to make sure that the rest of the DLC loaded, but to do that, we need to get past the first little bit here. We just need to go into Claptrap's place here and past a cutscene with the Bullymong. You notice while you get the pipeline compiled message, you sometimes get a little stutter, but as you play the game more, you get all the pipelines compiled and you don't have to do that anymore.
Sorry about the mess. Everything Jack kills, he dumps here. Bandits, vault hunters, claptrap units. If I sound pleased about this, it's only because my programmers made this my default tone of voice. I'm actually quite depressed. Now, the creatures around here are dangerous. this bullymong named Knuckle Dragger. Killed everyone I know. Anywho, I keep a pistol in the cabinet over there for emergencies. But in here, we should be pretty safe. The gun in the cabinet. Once upon a time, the voltage was changed with the door forever. Then time has passed. Thanks to handsome Jack.
Now we need to just get him to open the next door.
Apart from the excruciating pain, this is great! I've been waiting for a mighty bolt hunter to help me reach sanctuary. I will be your wise leader, and you shall be my fearsome minion! Ooh! Great! Just let me get this door open and we'll hunt ourselves a bullymong.
Now, if we go to the fast travel station, if you don't have the DLC installed, you will only see one thing here.
Let me know if I'm gonna run into anything.
But if the DLC is there,
You didn't see that.
you will see, in addition to Claptrap's Place, you will see the Badass Crater of Badassitude, which is the Torg DLC, and the Oasis, which is the Captain Scarlet DLC. So, it appears the DLC has been installed successfully here. So, I've played this for a while, at least up through the other side of Southern Shelf, and so far it seems to run pretty well. Again, your performance is going to depend on what kind of Android handheld you have, but at least now we have access to Borderlands 2 with at least all the DLC that came with the Vita version, which is certainly better than just the base game. So that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, remember to leave a like. If you want to see more handheld and other gaming related content, remember to subscribe to the channel. And thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.